Gravity is all that I know. She's over me. She's over me. She comes with her hypnotic dance. She holds me here with only a glance. She's over me. She's over me.
And welcome, everybody, to the Paranormal Portal Bedtime Stories from Beyond. I'm your host, Brent Thomas, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be here. As always, it is 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time right now, which means we are live 7 days a week right here on our YouTube channel, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be here and entertain you as well as I know how. I had a good day, I guess. Some cool things happened. Nothing extraordinary, of course, that you guys might be able to appreciate, but at least it's something I can appreciate. So that was a good day. I hope your day was wonderful. Your Monday is now behind you. And I don't know. It only gets better after Monday, but hope your Mondays went well out there, guys. I know a lot of us are programmed into, oh, it's Monday. And I can appreciate that, but my Monday turned out pretty good. I hope yours did as well. But the phone lines are always open here on the Paranormal Portal Bedtime Stories from Beyond. The phone number to call in is 720-923-0500. Again, 720-923-0500. And I love to hear from you guys. So if you got something to share, something you've experienced, some kind of oddity or weirdness that you've been through. Sorry, kind of wish a button up a little bit. I didn't mean to look all gigolo here, but there we go. I feel more professional now. But yeah, the phone lines are open, so if you've got something paranormal to share, please call in and do so. Whether it's an actual account or occurrence or experience, or just your thoughts on something that we may be covering, or something altogether differently. And be sure to check out our podcast, ladies and gentlemen. It's today's podcast was haunted houses, and I covered a bunch of topics regarding haunted houses, and one of which was what was the first one? There was two major parts that I covered. The first part was, I think it was knowing when your house is haunted. Maybe that wasn't it, but we covered, it was the first part I covered was that I found out that people are more likely to purchase a haunted house than they are to buy a house near a highway. So I thought that was encouraging. It's like, well, maybe people aren't so freaked out and it's not quite as taboo as it used to be. And I found out that, this is from a USA Today article, but I found out that people are also okay with spending more on a house if it is haunted. And I thought, God, that's stupid, but so I don't know. You have to watch the podcast to get my whole scoop on it, but I was flabbergasted. I mean, in one hand, I'm encouraged because people are having the talk, having the discussion. That people are talking about hauntings now, and they're not, just water cooler whispers or whatever. It's a real conversation people are having, and that to me is encouraging because when people are talking about it, it means that it's not so taboo anymore, and people aren't ostracized as much anymore. Now, the second part had to do with different types of house spirits that people have in different cultures around the world, and I thought it was really interesting. Several of them were discussed, so check out the podcast if you get a chance, and that is available on Pandora, Spotify, iHeart, iTunes, and a gajillion other ones. And I say that all the time, but honestly, there's a list, just a huge 3-page list of different platforms that carry the Paranormal Portal through our Revolver network. And so you can find us out there. Wherever you're finding Sasquatch Chronicles, you'll find the Paranormal Portal. So unless you're going to Sasquatch Chronicles page, you probably won't find a lot of our shows there. Maybe Wes posts some of them once in a while, but no, I'm talking about actual platforms where you download podcasts. Sorry. But anyway, I guess that's all the laundry up front. So I hope you guys are ready, because it's time for bed. Oh, thank you, Julie. I appreciate that. Thanks for the link. That's cool. That is cool. Julia's such a big help, and Duke as well. Let's see. A bunch of you guys are here already, so let's go through the list and see who is here. Anxiety Talks is here. Beth Fierce is here. Black Tree is here, which is Julia, our mod. Blondie Lady, hello, Blondie Lady. Bobby Ends, hello, Bobby. Brown Dwarf, Cameron, Deb, and DJ Big Red. Elaine Clifford, hello, Elaine. Hello, everybody else that I just mentioned. Heather Steinoff, hello. I am Pam. Jason the Hat, hi, Jason. Welcome. Ken Squatch, Ken Squatch, that's awesome. Linda is here, and happy birthday, Linda, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. And Lindsay Bay is here. Mogayon Monster is here. Nessie Monster is here. Oz Squatch Australia is here. How you doing, Oz? Good to see you. I'm here. Pat Studios here. Rebecca 79 is here. Ruger Ridge is here. Smokin' Joe, Suzanne Page, that Harvey girl, and World Bigfoot Radio, our own Duke Sullivan is here. So quite a lot of you here, and that's wonderful. Thank you all for being here and being a part of the shows, and thank you for, hopefully you'll leave here and spread the word to other people like, hey, just checked out this new show and I really liked it. That's what I hope for anyway. MCAT, how you doing, brother? Welcome. I'm just hoping I didn't miss anybody else. I almost did see you at, oh, yeah, well, I kind of blend in now with the camo, but that's my new ghost hunting approach, is I'm going to try to wear camo and see if we can sneak up on them. Maybe. I don't know. It's worth a shot. But if I missed you, I do apologize. But anyway, let's see. Dun, 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 dun. What did I just miss? Oh, people. Yes. Happy birthday to Linda again. Welcome. She's been a long-time contributor to the show and has been doing some wonderful things and has a lot of paranormal experiences herself. So it's a special day. Anytime it's one of your guys' birthday, let me know, because I'd love to give you a shout out if it's your birthday. I can only tell, and I miss them too, but I only get the notifications, thank God for Facebook, because I don't know when hardly my own birthday is. That's just the way I work, and it's not because I don't care, but it's because I'm not focused that way in life. It's just the way I am. I'm quirky that way. But hopefully, let's see. Hopefully, you guys will let me know when it is your birthday. Sorry, I was just distracted there for a second. But let's get rolling. I got stories pulled up for you, and hopefully you'll enjoy them as much as I'm going to enjoy reading them to you. All right. So the first story tonight is coming from Oklahoma. It says, well, where to start? Well, I guess I should start at the beginning. That is a good place to start, by the way. If you're ever wondering, ladies and gentlemen, where should you start? Start at the beginning. To start off, I come from a family of very special people. We are Native American, and some in the family think, you know what? I'm not going to read this one because I did read that on the, good God, on the podcast. I'm going to read the next one though. Kansas is next. So let's go to Kansas. When younger, I was lucky enough to live with my mom and 2 brothers in a mobile home which sat on a piece of land near the outskirts of a small town I grew up in. The land was owned by my grandfather and used for his businesses. Behind us, there were the usual small town neighborhoods, But in front, our lawn gave way to a large gravel parking lot where trucks could load and unload things at my grandfather's warehouse. The warehouse was on the right side of this lot, and his car wash towards the left near the highway. It wasn't such a bad place to grow up, I guess. It wasn't the Cleaver residence, but it was good enough for us. Leave it to Beaver, the Cleavers. If you're not familiar, that's a really old reference. But anyway, let's see, where was I? Although it wasn't such a bad place to grow up, it wasn't the Cleaver residence, but it was good enough for us. Although she did a great job raising us, my mom was still a single parent. So it was gone a lot of the time, either working or painfully trying the dating scene again. My brothers and I spent a lot of time alone in the house, learning early how to take care of ourselves. The freedom was excellent, but we were decent kids, basically, so things were fairly normal except for a certain period of about 8 months. For some reason, all of a sudden we were hit with, well, I'm not sure what it was, but it was anything but normal. As far as I can recall, it began when I started hearing my name being called. This happened a lot, and it usually sounded like my own voice in an urgent whisper. Only once it was different. I was outside in the yard when I heard my mother shriek my name from inside the house. Sure that something horrid had just happened, I rushed in, only to find her calmly doing dishes. Well, she was fine and denied having called for me. This may or may not be connected, but a few weeks later I was away, and she broke a glass while doing dishes, putting a decent-sized gash in her hand that did need stitches. My name being called went on for some time, and then another thing was thrown in. Around 3:15 to 3:20 every morning, I would suddenly snap wide awake, laying there in the dark. A strong sense of fear would wash over me. Still, nothing ever happened, so I'd slowly doze back off. And then one night I woke up as usual and looked toward my bedroom window. But the glare of a nearby streetlight, I could see the silhouette of a man's head. He had a beard of some sort, wore glasses, and as he tilted his head back and forth to get a better look inside, that's creepy, I could hear the soft but unmistakable half tap, 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 half of a fingernail on the window pane. I don't know where the half thing is. Oh, is it maybe that was supposed to be quotes, but it's like somebody tapping on the window. The first few times this happened, I went from frozen with fear to completely losing it in about 5 seconds. I shared a room with my older brother Mike and violently shook him awake, all the while babbling about someone trying to break into the house. And that's what I thought was happening, but still, by the time Mike was awake enough to look, there was nothing to see. And he quickly grew irritated with my claims. So soon, I became the boy who cried wolf. The only difference being that I actually was seeing the wolf. This happened a few more times before stopping altogether, and I tried to calm myself by believing, or trying to believe, that it was just a friend playing a prank. Still, my window sat about 8 to 9 feet above the ground, and the earth, which was always soft, never had a single mark in it, for ladder or otherwise. Soon we began to hear something heavy moving around up on the roof. It would happen about 2 or 3 times a week, and everybody heard it. Slowly pacing back and forth over the length of the trailer, I would eventually speed up, becoming louder and louder before coming to a halt. And this would be followed by a series of loud knocks that came from random spots above the ceiling. Despite our many attempts, we never did find out what caused these noises. Whenever we went out to investigate, it would stop until we were back inside, and it was impossible for an animal big enough to make all that noise to get up there, and no human could move across the roof as fast as this thing did. Another odd incident occurred while we were all gone from the house. My grandmother called to talk with my mom and said that the phone was answered by someone she thought might be a friend of my younger brother, Chris. When this person told her everyone was gone at the moment, she asked him why he was there while we weren't, and he simply said, "I'm supposed to be here," and then hung up. Oh, jeez. We were never able to find out who my grandmother had spoken to, and to this day, my brother's friend completely denies ever being in our home while we were away. Time passed and Mike began to go through the phase where he was too cool to hang out with his younger brothers. And he was only 2 years older than me, but he felt that was enough to put him in charge. I felt differently and let him know whenever I could. And one night he was out with his friends and I had opted to stay in alone, and I was watching my favorite football team, the Raiders, play. A scary story in itself. And I had the lights off, the volume of the TV all the way down, and my headphones on, jamming to a Kiss album with the volume all the way up. Very cool. I love me some Kiss. Mike came back into the house for something, and just before leaving, motioned for me to take off the headset. When I did, he told me to turn off the light in my mom's room. He went out the front door, and I looked towards the end of the dark hallway, and sure enough, the light in Mom's bedroom was on, and I could see the glow from under the closed door. Not about to do anything Mike told me to do, I put the headphones back on and turned the record over, and laid the needle back on the spinning disc and proceeded to finish watching my team lose yet another game. I was still sitting there in the dark when Mike came home for the night. Jam session was over, so I took off the headphones and put the record away. A little later we were talking and he thanked me for turning the light off, confessing that he didn't really think that I would. I told him that I in fact didn't turn the light off, and he got a confused look on his face, and we both looked down the still dark hall, and the glow from under the door was gone. The light was off. Because of all the weird things that had been going on, it never occurred to us that the bulb may simply have gone out. We were sure someone was in the house. And there was only one thing to do, but that was to search the whole trailer. Scared to death, we retreated to the room we shared and rummaged through the closet for weapons. My brother got out the ever-trusty baseball bat, and I took a hold of a long, heavy saber I'd bought years before at an amusement park. It still mystifies me how anyone would sell a kid a very real and very sharp sword. Yeah, different era, I think. Our bedroom opened up to the living room, and beyond that was the kitchen, and we quickly checked these rooms and went slowly down the hall. To the left was Chris's room. At the end of the hall was the master bathroom and my mom's room. We searched every nook and cranny, every closet, under every bed, everywhere, and there was no one to be found. Nothing. We checked the light, which was in the off position, and it worked fine. The back door, which was locked as it always was, hadn't been touched. Again, we were left with yet another incident we could not explain. Summer came in, and with it an undefeated season in Little League baseball. Mike and I were on the same team, and after our final game had earned us each a gold medal, we happily made our way home. Turning into the gravel parking lot and walking around the side of the warehouse, we were surprised to find the house lit up, and we could hear noises coming from inside. No one was supposed to be home, and no cars were out front. So we went in to see what was going on. There weren't just a few lights on inside, every light was on. The noises came from the TV and radio, both of which were blaring. All the water faucets were turned on full blast, and both phones were off the hook. We turned down the noise and called out, but nobody answered. So we searched the house again, our weapons trembling in our hands. We turned off the lights as we went, and again finding no one there. We were just too freaked out to stay inside, so we went over to the car wash and sat down, trying to think of what to do. We were sitting there staring at the house and talking when suddenly, and at the same time, every light came on in the house. Then they slowly blinked 3 or 4 times, finally staying off for good. Then the noise started. It was quiet at first, but it really built up in intensity. The jabber from the TV competing with the notes being churned out from the radio. And that was enough. Without a word, we both jumped up and sprinted to our aunt's house, which was nearby. We stayed there until my mom came home from work later, and my aunt must have called her because she came and picked us up. Our mom seemed really worried, as if she knew some funky things had been going on, but didn't want to talk about it. Eventually, the strange tide that came into our lives finally started to ebb, but not before one last incident. School had just begun, and as usual, we had to get up every morning, prepare ourselves since Mom would already be at work by then. Mike was still into his too cool for use phase, so he would leave for school early, and this meant that my younger brother Chris and I were left alone. We would eat breakfast, put on the clothes Mom left out for us on her bed, and then do whatever else needed to be done before heading off. One morning we got up as usual and sleepily went about the business of preparing ourselves for another day of learning. And just before leaving, I went through the trailer to turn everything off. Starting with the light in Mom's room, I made sure the master bath and everything was turned off, and then made my way down the hall to another set of light switches in the kitchen. Turning my attention back to the end of the hall, just to be sure, I saw the hazy shape of a person standing in the doorway of my mom's room. It had no distinct features, but it didn't take much imagination to tell what it was. I stood there, hand on the switch, staring at this thing in silence, while everything inside me began to tighten up. My brother was near the door, tying his shoes and saying something. It didn't register. I had all my attention on this thing on the other end of the hall. I pushed the switch down and the light in the hall went off. And to my horror, the thing in the door immediately floated from the doorway down the hall and towards the kitchen, towards me. Strangely enough, once it reached the place where the hall became the kitchen, the form stopped and just hovered there a few inches off of the floor. My heart was beating fast, and by this time my brother Chris, still at the door, had seen it and was watching. The thing and I were on opposite sides of the kitchen now, about 15 feet separated us. I put my finger on the switch for the light and turned it off, sprinting to the door before I could even see what would happen. Chris was already outside on the porch by the time I got to the front door. I threw my things outside and spun around to grab the doorknob, and as I did, I saw the hazy figure slowly leave the hall, make its way around the kitchen table, and then once again hover a few inches above the floor. This time where the kitchen and the living room met. There was one more light to turn off, the living room light. The switch for that one was next to the front door. I stood watching the thing hover at the entranceway to the kitchen. I reached around the other side of the door, pushing in the knob so as to lock it, and I grabbed hold of the outer knob and turned off the living room light. And this thing literally rushed through the living room. It came straight for me, and just as it was about to reach the door, I slammed it shut. Chris and I making a run for it. I didn't learn much in school that day, and neither did Chris, I assume. Just like everything else had happened during this time, we could come up with no explanation as to what we had seen. Like I said, things soon went back to normal, whatever that is, and eventually we no longer saw or heard all the weird things that had been plaguing us for so long. As far as I know, the warehouse and the car wash are still there, but the trailer is gone, having been torn apart years ago by the people who bought it from us. Wow. That's intense. That is incredibly intense. Huh. Not sure what you guys think of that, right? But I'm here to say that is, nothing in that story sounds off the wall or convoluted in any way. I think what this person saw was very genuine and real, just from the narrative. Again, I can't know for sure, but what an incredibly long experience seeing an apparition, though. That is really unusual. Normally most sightings of apparitions are really similar to most sightings of Bigfoot. They're like 3 seconds. And that's about it, or just a few seconds. Although there does seem to be something with, I don't know, it's kind of a pet theory of mine, but we hear so many times in stories of people encountering spirits as there'll be this like staring session. And they'll just stare and stare and stare and stare each other. The person will be staring at the figure will be staring at the person, and it's like it almost seems to create some form of quantum entanglement, for lack of a better term. And it's like the spirit can't leave and can't disappear or can't phase most of the time, as long as they're eye to eye, until the person looks away or is distracted. And then once the person is distracted, then boom, they'll look back and the spirit will be gone. Now, I don't know if that's always the case, because we do hear of stories of people just saying, I saw the spirit stand there looking at me and it faded away. So it does come up that they don't. But I wonder if there is some situations where it can create some kind of quantum entanglement where they can't leave. And I don't think that all the spirits And all the ghosts are all the same thing. I think there's many different types that occupy this, quote unquote spirit realm. And it seems to be a certain kind of them that cannot leave as long as you're glaring at them and they're glaring at you. As soon as that eyes are met, it's like for lack of a better term, like a quantum entanglement. And they can't leave until something happens and you divert your attention just for a millisecond and look back, they're gone. So, but I think it's seems to be mostly with dark spirits, dark and horrible things. I don't know, but terrible thing, I'm sure. I don't know, just a thought, ladies and gentlemen. How you guys doing? Bunches of you here. Thank you all for being here. There's quite a few of you just sitting out there not chatting, and that's okay. You don't have to chat. I just appreciate that you all are here. Yeah, I really like that story, though. That was really well done. Very long story, but very well done. All right, now we're going to Oregon. Let's see just what's going on in the Oregon here. This is originally going to be a second post for me, but I thought maybe it would be best to share my very first known experience with the unknown before moving on to some additional stories I have to tell. Back in 1981, I was 18. Do the math. It was the year after my father died. It weighed very heavily on the entire family, since even his father and mother outlived him, but only for a few months, but still. About 9 months after he passed away, I had this experience that I considered my very first paranormal visit. I awoke one night, I was 19 by this time, in a heavy sweat. I pulled off my t-shirt, tossed it on the floor of my bed, and noticed that someone was in the living room of the home that my mom and I still shared. I could see down the hall and a shadow that kept pacing back and forth. I got up to investigate. I entered the living room only to find my mom sitting on our couch and, strangely enough, my dad seemingly in an anxious mood, walking from one end of the room to the other. He didn't look at me until I sat on the couch with my mom, but even then, it was just a quick look, one almost of worry, and then he continued pacing, back and forth, back and forth. He wasn't saying anything. I noticed he kept reaching up to a gauze patch that was on his forehead above his left eye, almost like it itched. He never had any kind of trauma to his head, so I couldn't understand why he had this sterile bandage on his forehead. He died of Hodgkin's disease, lymph node cancer. Well, I looked at my mom, and she looked at me, and I said to my dad, "Dad, why are you here?" He stopped pacing, looked at me, and said, "I have a lot of things to finish." I woke up then, in bed, finding my t-shirt at the foot of my bed where I had thrown it in my sleep. I rushed to the room where my mom was sleeping and told her the dream I had. Was she there too? Had she seen her husband, my dad? She looked away like she didn't want to talk about it, and she said that she hadn't. She never explained why she didn't want to continue the conversation at that point. She just didn't want to go into further discussion. About a year later, math would indicate I'm 20 at this point, I'm involved in a semi-serious automobile accident, and I spent the night in the hospital, and a surgeon is called in to remove glass from my head and sew me up. You guessed it. The glass was lodged in my forehead over my left eye. I wore a gauze bandage to cover it for several months as it healed. And to this day, some 25 years later, it still itches from time to time. Nothing to explain, nothing to analyze. It did begin a series of events that has made me wake up to the fact that there's more out there than we really see. And I've been open to seeing it all when they happen. And when my scar itches, I know it's my dad thinking about me. Thanks for listening. I'll add more as soon as I can. That's pretty powerful stuff. I actually had an experience like that. I've told you all, I've mentioned all of these dreams I had of my father, but I had two really poignant ones. One was the first one when he was in his home after his passing. It was a few months later, and I was in his home, but it was absolutely real. Everything was real, perfectly real. And there he was just standing in the living room. And I ran up and said, Dad, where you been? We missed you. We missed you. And I gave him a hug and talked to him. Well, that was the first dream. And we had a real healing, good conversation. And I felt his hug. It was real. I mean, I don't know how to explain it to you guys, but any of you that have had lucid dreams will understand when something happens in a really, really lucid dream, and especially these dreams of our deceased loved ones, they're just so incredibly real that you can't separate it from reality. It's just that real. Well, the second dream that I had, I was I was sitting with my mom and myself at the dining room table in my parents' house, and my older brother, one of my older brothers, was there, and my dad was standing behind my mom and I, in between us, and we were having a discussion about some problems and issues going on with things to do with the estate or something. I don't know, but there was just a lot of things to iron out, and my dad was specifically having problems, and I don't remember him saying words, but I think we all just understood that he was very troubled. And my older brother looked at me and said, well, why don't you take care of it? And then I looked at him and said, you don't know, do you? And then he was like, it just dawned on him, oh yeah, Dad had passed. And it was like he was there. It's like I was there. And it was like my mom was there. And after this dream, I called my mom the next morning because I was so sure. I was just convinced she would remember being there too. I don't know, but nobody else did. Now, does that mean they weren't? I don't know. Maybe they weren't. Maybe it all existed in my head. I don't know. There's the possibility of that. There's the possibility that they didn't carry that maybe they were there and they just couldn't remember for whatever reason. But whatever the case may be, I know what that dream is like because I was there. I had one very, very similar to that. Now, nothing about my dream was premonitory in any way. There's no premonitions. Nothing that is manifest as a result of it that I can remember. I don't even remember what the problems my dad had in this dream or was sharing with us three that he was concerned about. But I just know that I couldn't do it. I couldn't take care of it for my dad. There was nothing I could do, and my brother was just thinking that I could, and I couldn't. So I don't know if that makes sense or not. I guess it probably sounds kind of convoluted as I sit here listening to myself try to explain it, but just suffice it to say that when these dreams happen, where they happen when you've lost someone you love, and if you get the opportunity to have these dreams, and maybe many of you out there have, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, but they are so profoundly real. I mean, in every case, I woke up, with tears running down my face because it was just so powerful, so absolutely powerful. And I was never. It's not just an issue of me being sad that my dad passed away, because the way that he was dying was very painful for him. It was very devastating to him on a very personal and emotional level because he was a very stoic man. He was a guy that did things. And here he was trapped in his own body because his lungs couldn't exchange gases. He was hardened. His lungs were hardening, and it absolutely devastated him to a degree that I don't think, anybody outside of our family could understand. But this is a man that worked 3 jobs most of his life, and when he wasn't working at those jobs, he was working on his own stuff. He just loved doing stuff, and to be trapped in a chair to watch TV for a year or two was absolutely just torturous for him. But, anyway, but it wasn't about that. So when his passing happened, it was very much a relief and a release because I knew he was free. And then to have the dreams where, we talked and ironed out some things that we were never able to say in life, was really, really powerful and cathartic. So they are just very real experiences. Take it or leave it, ladies and gentlemen, but very true. Oh, thank you, Bobby. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's okay. I really was happy, but it was just such beautiful moments in these dreams that they were tears of joy. Honestly, they were. They were just like, oh my God. Because I think anytime someone passes, we always carry that with our soul. It's like, oh, I never got the chance to make this right. I never got the opportunity to say the things I probably should have said. And he never had the opportunity either. But in this dream, we did. We had this amazing healing moment that I just feel nothing but warmth and love now when I think of my dad, which in life I couldn't say the same thing, and that probably makes me a jerk to some degree because, your father's your father. But, yeah, we just didn't get along. We didn't click real well in life, but we do now, as far as I can tell. But thank you. I appreciate that. So let's see what is next. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed that. And I don't mean to make the show about me, but I just really appreciate when I've had experiences that people have had and it really resonates with me. And I think that maybe that discussion can help any of you out there that haven't understand. Excuse me. So let's see. Yeah, he does. I think you're right, Steph. I think he does. I think he lives on with all of us. It's like he was so busy in life that I think in his afterlife he's spending a lot of time with his family and, wherever we are. And I think that's really cool. But thank you for those thoughts. That's beautiful. Beautiful. It's all about you. Thanks, Bob. Thanks a lot, Bob. All right, so let's continue on. All right, so the next one is Missouri or Missouri. Oh, I got a call here. Let me get to this. Sorry, I have left her on hold for 3 minutes. Hello, area code 530. You're on the air.
Hey, Brent. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. This is Sage.
Hey,
I wanted to thank you for sharing that.
Oh, thank you. No, I appreciate it. Thank you. That's very sweet. I haven't heard from you for a while. It's nice to hear from you.
Well, I'm ill.
Oh.
And I had brain surgery, as I explained during one of my calls. And one of the things that I wanted to call and maybe help people that have never had near-death experiences, or they don't have to, having brain surgery is the same thing as going and having any other type of major surgery. You have to retrain and have to learn how to do things just like other surgeries. And certain dreams I had prior to my brain surgery, and I could feel and smell and touch them just as I could if I was standing here.
Right.
And they didn't go away.
That's
other
wonderful.
Memories in this life here, like if I'm awake, have gone away. Oh. But those dreams, when you're not surrounded by the ego and you're in unconditional love and you're getting that message and you're realizing what that personal message is, and you're going through your own awakening, I think it's so incredibly powerful for not only our minds to comprehend, but also our consciousness to remember that. That's one of the reasons why we hold on to it. But it's just as real.
Right.
It's just as real.
No, I agree. I think that they're incredibly real. Almost more real than they're almost more real than real life.
Yeah. And sometimes it's hard to let it go and not want it to come back, or this life is hard, I mean, this with how it's going and with the ego increasing and the hatred increasing, and
sure,
it's hard, and when you get a touch of that unconditional love, it's really an amazing gift.
Yeah.
Especially when it's your father.
Yeah.
It
was really cool.
Quite an amazing thing.
It really was. And it was so nice to be able to not carry that guilt with me after that fact, because that was a road that was now closed as far as I knew. There was going to be no way to reconcile those things. It was just what I was going to have to carry with me. But he came and we had that moment that I very much believe was real, and it was just so healing. It was awesome.
When I went into brain surgery, I wasn't supposed to make it, and I had to. I'm I got disabled at a very, very young age.
Uh-huh.
And instead of being upset about it and being pissed off about it, I came back with my near-death experience in complete serenity, and I jumped on that, and I took every lesson that came at me, and I learned from it.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it took me longer than other people,
Uh-huh.
and that was a hard thing to learn because everybody wants to put a timeline on, how long you need to get over something, or how long you need to process something, or how long you need to even accept a death, which is unrealistic because no one lives in your life. And the things that I've realized from not being in the social world and working and moving consistently, but actually stopping and listening
Mm-hmm.
and watching is that, and one of my very good friends, who I'm 100% sure is listening, told it to me best, is that we're really hard on ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Really, really, really hard on ourselves. And the one message that I always get back from my loved ones is how much they love me.
Mm-hmm.
They don't, I don't get these messages of, why don't you do this? Or why are, like, not like what you would think. And I've never heard that,
Right. Mm-hmm.
So we maybe should stop and kind of question that and take advice from the ones that have actually moved on and are making an effort to come back and give us,
Yeah.
a little help.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think,
Stop beating ourselves up.
yeah, I think that when people are fortunate enough to have those experiences, they can, in a single stroke, change everything. Just a lifetime of pain can be healed with one expression of love, or it can be at least helped. You know.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And uh, especially right now, there's not one place on this earth that's not being hit or or not one person that's not going through something.
Right.
I mean, we're all struggling,
Mm-hmm.
and everyone's trying to figure out the answer. And the answer isn't fighting. That's not it. And there's a trend going on. The higher our vibration of negativity that rises, it seems to be letting in more cryptics and more things that weren't either talked about or that were in stories that, like my grandmother told me, or that were in folklore, back in the days.
Yeah.
And they're coming back on even games,
Right.
like video games. They're becoming a straight reality.
Yeah. It's kind of
And
scary.
when we can actually turn it around, we have that choice.
Mm-hmm.
All we have to do is remember.
Yeah.
Just got to remember. All I wanted to do was just call and tell you thank you. It's really hard to give that piece of gift up and to share it, but it's really important to share it because
Thank you. I appreciate that.
fearing death,
Mm-hmm.
you shouldn't. You shouldn't fear death. It's like graduating
Mm-hmm.
a really good college that you didn't have to pay for and you're not in debt.
Well, I think we're paying, though. I think we're paying a lot, to be honest with you, but the reward is worth it. But we definitely have to pay. There's nothing about this world that's easy.
Well, I think we're paying here,
Yeah, that's what I
right?
mean. Right, through our experience and through the confusion and the frustration and the sadness and the illusion of separation and all of that. I think that's kind of the tuition cost.
But then at the same time, we're also rewarded, even in the midst of the worst times.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes like the most beautiful things can happen.
I think that that's really true, and that's the part that I don't, I've really learned in my life that I think was a really hard lesson for me is that I've hurt, and I don't know that my pain is any more than anyone else's or any less. I mean, but for me, I've hurt about as much as I think it's possible to hurt. But
Hmm.
I'm sure I could be proven wrong. But my point is not to try to martyr myself, but to say that even in the midst of all of that dark pain and that sadness and the trouble and the struggles, there does always seem to be something that comes through, and it'll just be enough to make you go, "Wow, okay." Now that and you start to
Right.
see that there is a design to all of this, and there's a maybe a plan, whatever that means, and it's up to the individual to say, determine that. But I know that when we're in the midst of our struggles and it feels like everything's fallen down, and what do we do? That if we look, there might just be something waiting for us to pick up, that will really help us get through those moments. And thank God that I've managed to find them, because I know that some people don't, and that's horrible.
Yeah, with, uh, and I'm sure everybody's kind of like, this, everything and nothing has to do with the supernatural, because we live in the supernatural, because
Uh-huh.
we don't know where we come from. We don't know what we're doing. We don't know where we're going. We don't know what's happening. We're all walking around and we're trying to find either someone to lead us, or we're trying to figure out where we're going.
Sure.
So, our whole life is supernatural.
It
The
really
people
is.
that don't want to believe that it's not supernatural are the ones that just are putting their heads in, the
Hmm.
sand and walking away.
Yeah.
The ones that can find the beauty. And there was a question of what the light was, and I think this is a good example of what the light is
Hmm.
that the light is being able to glimpse the love even in the hard struggles
Yeah.
of no matter what it is.
Hmm.
And every life and every person is different. So no one should ever judge themselves on anyone else's pain, because everyone's pain ends up being the same. It's pain.
Yeah, it does. You're right. But
Pain is pain.
yeah.
It's still, it drops you to your feet. It makes you cry.
Yeah.
It makes you feel alone. It makes you hurt.
Hmm.
And we all don't want to be alone.
Right. Yeah, very true. Very, very true. But you're absolutely right.
And in the end, we end up finding we're not. And that was one of the things that scared me with your show, is that I've gone for so long, and then I realized I wasn't alone, and I didn't know. I was like, "Oh my God, I spilled so much," and then I did on something, and then I stepped back and I was like, "Oh my gosh, what?" And and because it's another awakening. We have to, we consistently go through these awakenings. It doesn't ever stop.
Right.
We never stop learning,
Yeah.
and we get help from the other side, and it's beautiful, and we should always be sharing them. And we should never be worried about if we're going to break down, or if we're going to be upset, or what somebody else is going to think, because we
Hmm.
should always just be loving and caring and understanding, because we don't have the right to be judgmental for other people.
Right. Yep. Very true.
And so I wanted to thank you for that gift and that story, because it actually helped me
Oh, good. Well, thank you for
with
reaching out.
what I shared. So thank you. And I'm sorry it took so much time, guys, on the chat. And I love you all so much. And I missed all of you so much. And thank you, Brent. And wherever Dawn is, thank you, Dawn. And I love all of you guys. And I felt whatever you were talking about, and then it's yours. But I mean, he's apparently helping you, so
Yeah,
you got a good dad.
I think so.
Not all of us do, so congratulations.
Well, I think he's doing a lot in this version of him now, and I believe that's him trying to make up for the past. But it's wonderful, and it's neat to know he's there. So, but it's wonderful to hear from you as well, and thank you so much for reaching out, Sage.
Absolutely. You have a great day, Brent.
All right, we love
Bye.
you. Take care of yourself.
You too. Bye.
That's cool. And Jose, I'm sorry to hear. I've been reading a little bit about what you're going through or what you've been through. Yeah, I know it's tough stuff, man. Very tough stuff. But I really believe that they're around us. I really do. As empty and as it feels not to have someone physically sharing our life with us anymore, I just think, I think that they're there. You just got to find a new way to see them. You got to find a new way to listen for them. And that's part of that awareness. And I think the dreams are a big one for me anyway. That's been a big one for me. With those that I love who have passed, they've many of them, not all, but many of them have chosen to come to me in their dreams and in my dreams. And I just really appreciate that. And I don't know why, it doesn't come to me in my waking state other than perhaps everything's just too busy. There's just too much going on, and it's so hard for them to cut through all the static of our lives. But we seem to be pretty wide open when we're sleeping, so pay attention to your dreams, and maybe that loved one will come through to you. Or maybe ask that they do. Sometimes you can do that. You can kind of program what your sleep is going to be. If you send out that message, please come see me and talk to me. And, I can't guarantee they will, but it's worth a shot. Just some thoughts, but man, I don't like anybody feeling that pain, and I understand that pain, but just know that they're with you somehow. They are with you. As long as there was love and that love continues, no matter what. Death is not erase love. Love is the one constant of the universe, I think. I mean, that sounds really flowery and hippie kind of stuff, but I really believe that. I think that that's really the only truth. Otherwise, there's just a lot of illusion. So anyway, let's continue. I was going to go to Missouri, and that's where I'm going. That's where I'm going, darn it. All right, so it says, this one's really short. It says, I was in St. Louis on a business trip, installing some computers at our new building there and staying in this creepy hotel. I don't remember what one, but it was an older hotel with the name Radisson pops into my head. It's the name Radisson that pops into my head. Well, that's a chain of hotels, but that place gave me the creeps from the moment I got there, and I was just uneasy the whole time. Well, I woke up about 2 a.m. and felt like someone was sitting on my back, and I couldn't move. I've had episodes of sleep paralysis and have been aware of not being able to move, but all those times I couldn't even open my eyes. This wasn't sleep paralysis, since I could see in the dim light of the room. I just couldn't move, like I was pinned to the bed, and I saw my cell phone on my bed, and for some reason that seemed logical at the time, that if I called my mom, I'd be okay, so I kept trying to force my arms to reach for the phone. After 20 minutes of this terrifying ordeal, remember, my eyes were open so I could see the clock. I felt this cold chill shoot into my lower back and then work its way in both directions towards my feet and head, and I couldn't move. This was not sleep paralysis. This was something evil. I was there for 4 days, and I was glad to get back to Phoenix. I'd never been so scared in my entire life. And this happened about 5 years ago, and if I could remember the exact hotel this happened in, I'd tell people to never go there, ever. Well, that's an interesting one. So this person actually felt like something going into their back and this cold spreading up and down. Now, is that... So there's a belief that there are some types of paranormal beings that draw from us, draw from our energy, draw from our life force, whatever. So is this what that feeding feels like? Is that there's like tendrils of cold that go inside of you and kind of draw out your energy? I don't know. But that's got to feel horrible. That's got to be like being a spider in the web and you can't move and you feel the venom injected and coursing through you. Eesh. Well, whatever. That's a horrible story. It's not a badly written. It's just a horrible story. That's just a horrible situation to be in. This one's Indiana and says, I was under the impression that since I had not heard anything recently, that maybe things had kind of gone back to normal. Little did I know that things were just getting started. I was under the impression that since I had, why is it, they repeated it twice. Okay, I was in my bedroom watching television with my husband, and then the remote to the television was at our feet. We have a king-size bed, and it's pretty far for me at least to reach it from where I was. It was nowhere close to my hubby's feet either. Well, all of a sudden the channel changes, and I thought that he had kicked the remote, and I thought that I had kicked it, and we both didn't say anything, and he got up and reached for it. And that's when I noticed he was nowhere close to it either. He put it back in the channel that it was in, and then he laid back down. All of a sudden, again, the television changes, but this time the DVR goes on, and we're both kind of looking at it, and it is selecting programs to record. My husband looks at me, and I look at him. Then we both look at the remote, and no one is touching it. So we think. He grabbed it and canceled the program that was going to record, but when he did that, he noticed that there had already been a few kids' programs that were set up to record, which my kids don't know how to do, and we didn't do it. So needless to mention that this has happened several times, including the night before last. At first, I thought that maybe the batteries, but no batteries going dead, will start setting up a program to record. It was very scary to see the television going through the screens all by itself. That's a really technically advanced spirit. Now, again, I don't know. We always have new listeners, and I always want to bring everybody up to speed. But if you watch, God, when did we go through that? We went through that on our Parathon. I talked about the experiences of my dad being present in their home. It continues the narrative of my dad, and that he's very active in his home back in Minnesota. And I just tell you to go watch it. I don't want to try to paraphrase it all again. I've done it a few times on the show, and I even had my mom on one episode to interview her, and I broke down crying during that one. But that was a tough one to talk to her about everything, and just got real emotional. But he's been doing some wild stuff. He's a pretty busy guy in his afterlife. So anyway, let's see what we're doing here, or how we're doing rather. So we're almost at the hour mark, ladies and gentlemen. So I think this will probably be a good place to close the show. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I always enjoy doing it. You guys are amazing, and it's a real pleasure, and it's a real honor to do these shows for you. I just want to tell you, please check out the podcast. Please, if you have an experience of your own that you'd like to send in, or if you'd like to be a guest on our podcast to share your experiences, let me know. You can reach out to me at paranormalportalradio@gmail.com, and I'll be happy to hear from you and to see what's going on. But I just think that that's about it. I think that's about all I got. So I love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other, help each other out, find the magic in every day, and remember to laugh as much as you can. And thank you to all of you for being here. I look forward to you coming back tomorrow night. I'll be back here doing the same thing. More bedtime stories tomorrow night. 7 days a week, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. There is a Paranormal Portal going on right here on YouTube. So definitely check it out. Also, just thank you, the dude. I appreciate that. Check out our podcast. We release 3 a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So covering all sorts of different, material as well. And the podcasts are unique from the YouTube show. So it's not just a regurgitation of the same material. Sometimes we've taken some classic episodes from our show, our live shows, and put them on the podcast because the interviews are so great. And I wanted to pass that on and let people hear some of those amazing interviews or just some really good shows. But that's always an option. There may be some repeats that you've heard here on YouTube, but 90% of the time, those are all brand new shows. So if you need more Portal, that's one way you can get it. So if you do check out the podcast, please subscribe to it on whatever platform you're using. If you love the podcast, please head over to iTunes and leave a good review if you would, please. That will really help us a bunch. So, all right, guys, that's it for me. I guess we're through. But have a great night. Sleep well. Sweet dreams. And have a great day tomorrow. And I'll be right here waiting for you at 7 p.m. Pacific time for another Paranormal Portal Bedtime Stories from Beyond. I'm Brad Thomas, wishing you a good evening.